Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the time is when you decide to watch this. Welcome back to Cody on Comics. We're here to do another episode for you. I got my good friend Tyler off to my left, possibly your right. I'm not sure how it's gonna throw things up on the YouTube when we get to that point.
Wherever I am, just go with it.
Yeah, go with it. Just do it. So Tyler is a good friend of mine. Like I said, he's a writer, he's a rapper, he's an artist of all sorts. I wouldn't be
Jack of all
surprised.
trades, master of none, like they say.
Yeah, totally. Right. Jack off of all. Wait, that's not what you said.
No.
um,
God.
kind of. I wouldn't be surprised if that's some of your art on the wall back there.
That's my kids, but
Yeah, the next generation, man. The next generation.
oh, yeah. She
Of
just
people in that Star
pops out these pieces. Our entire living room's just full of them.
Right on. All right. So today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit specifically about Boner. Ralph fucking Boner.
Yeah. I saw what you did there, Disney.
Yeah.
That was clever.
Making dick jokes at us while hiding it behind a reference to what was it? Oh, not The Facts of Life. Matt Shackman was on everything though. One of those old shows.
I mean, it figures they did in the 80s era episode too, you know.
Right. No, it's
Basically
perfect.
Playing instead of Uncle Jesse, it's Uncle Petro.
Like,
find out.
So they bring him into the show. That's actually a perfect way to start this. The 80s. It's the 80s.
Yeah.
They bring him on and it's like, holy shit, it's the other Pietro from the other franchise, which is therefore another universe, right?
Well, it's crazy because earlier in WandaVision, they do the flashback and they show Marvel's version,
right?
That plays in Kick-Ass,
right? Which is,
and he's all steroided out, yet still running super fast.
Yeah,
you know?
no, which is beautiful, beautifully done.
Yeah,
but
so
then
when it hits, like,
right. And so they play it out and they play it out and they never really explain it until that final episode when they go, oh no, this was Ralph all along. And I just don't fucking buy it.
Well, and I started rewatching this when you were like, hey, you want to talk about not Quicksilver?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because I got a couple things about that.
Yeah, so there was one line that Agatha said when she was talking about her creation of this person, and where all of Wanda's people had counterparts in the real world. We find out that Ralph does too, but he's a failed actor. That's a mite contrived compared to everyone else.
That with the what's his name, the Mandarin,
right?
They tried to pull that actor card before,
right? Okay, so that worked though, especially if they start the Shang-Chi movie.
Why did Wanda react to it the way she did?
Yeah, right. So there was a word that Agnes or Agatha used, whatever, same person. Same
if
person.
We're gonna call her Scarlet Witch now. We might as well call the other one the Purple Witch.
Yeah, I could. I'm colorblind though, so fuck all that. No, the word
the bad witch of the show.
The word was a crystalline.
Yeah.
And not replicant. I'm thinking about that whole thing, but but a construct, crystalline construct.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do crystals do when you shine?
Reflect something that's already there, you just can't see it.
Right, it's a refraction, and like a distorted image, even.
Yeah.
So
like you're shaking a photograph, and it's not quite what you think it's gonna be yet.
Right. So here's my theory. This is where my whole thought process starts. What if what that particular phrase meant is that the spell she cast reached out into the multiverse to find a living Pietro. But to do that, it had to find his physical counterpart in the regular Marvel view. And Ralph Boner and Pietro, physically and cosmically in that regard, multi-cosmically, whatever. In that regard, they are the same. He is what Pietro could have looked like.
In the Marvel timeline matches up the multiverse soul element.
Right. Like no other body on the planet would have been suitable for that. Like, it's not the Speed Force because that's a DC thing, but that level of speed, no other body could have taken it except Ralph Boner's.
Right.
So my thought is exactly that. The spell she cast to bring him into the hex was casting into the universe to find who matches something that is living, because they couldn't match it to Kick-Ass's body as it was decaying at that point, possibly even rapidly due to his mutant ability. Like, never think about that. No.
Well, from a writing perspective, you have to remember that you're looking at this almost entirely from Wanda's perspective until they start introducing outside of, what's happening with Sword and all that.
Right.
That's supposedly the real world, right? But once you remove yourself from, Sword and all the other shit that's happening, and you put yourself back in Wanda's perspective, she's an unreliable narrative, She's
Absolutely.
having a mental break. And you kind of find that out as it goes.
That's a fun trope that comes from the books that actually carried over so well to the screen. But go ahead, continue.
They play with mental breakdowns as a catalyst for something like this happening a lot with mutants.
Yeah. Oh, all the time.
Dark Phoenix, or just what happened to my memory, when it's Logan kind of shit.
With Wanda, what's cool too in the whole mutant question with the MCU is, when are they going to bring in mutants? And it's the answer is that they did in Age of Ultron. They didn't.
Well, yeah, they did.
They absolutely did in Age of Ultron.
And more importantly, you got to see through what's her name. What's her name? The black chick who's the daughter.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah. She ends up becoming a mutant. They didn't say the word yet.
Well, and that would be cool. That would actually be a cool retcon to her character.
Was rewritten. If you go off of how they were describing it, it's not destroying it. It's rewriting.
Well, and technically, like, that makes her
half a fucking, like, what was that? Like a Toyota when it should be a moon rover.
Right. Right. The thing with that too is
back to Ultron though.
Oh, absolutely. The thing with that is, like, technically, because it's outside forces, she's a mutate, but because it's reality warping forces, chaos magic, is she a mutate? Like, Spider-Man's a mutate. Spider bites him, he mutates. Right. Daredevil mutate. Just an enhanced human through.
Banner is a mutation. That's what the Gamma did. They never really used that verbiage because of legal reasons.
Right.
But if you look at the monopoly outside in our world,
No, it's like that's how they classify them within. Revan, get off my computer, man.
Right. Go on, Kitty. Because of Fox was doing the whole mutant and.
Right.
Yeah. Now it's all under one House of Mouse. So
all under the House of Mouse, and we don't fight the mouse. All praise be to the mouse. I think that might actually be one of the tag phrases for this show, is all praise be to the mouse, because we're going to talk about their properties a lot on this show as the episodes wear on.
They have both a monocle and a spyglass carrier. Yeah, who can we buy next?
No, they're so rich. It's one unit. It's one unit. It's a monocle that just extends into.
It really does. steampunk shit, you know.
Right. They've got the money.
And if they do, what is money now? If you've looked around, like, what is? I promised you, we got it. Just give us 3 more blockbusters.
Yeah, 3 more.
Yeah, 3 more, and then we got this spread covered.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Like, it's great. Like, I love to live in this age where my favorite things from my childhood that have actually carried over into adulthood are now being given to me at an exponential, explosive rate as the years wear on. The more movies they make, the more cartoons I get.
It's like the fans who grew up, you know, like watching bad adaptations too, were like, you
We're
know,
in charge now.
We're in charge now. Yeah, you're like, no, fuck this, I got this. And you saw it with the Snyder cut, you know, getting released, and you're just like, see, that's how it should have been done from day one. And
Dude, did you see the Justice is Gray cut?
I'm in the middle of watching that.
Okay, that like I liked them both.
Like, I remember when he did his Dawn of the Dead remake in black and white, and I was just like, see, that's how you make a fucking horror movie.
Dude, right. Oh, Logan in black and white, like for the superhero. Like that was a great film, as is. Same with the Snyder cut, same with the Dawn of the Dead.
They did it as well.
These fucking dogs. Hold on, I can't hear you. Shut up. They don't listen. They don't listen.
There's somebody talking in the...
Yeah, there's someone in the road. They were there an hour ago. They're not there now, but I just caught their scent. They're ridiculous.
Okay, so your theory about Petro, or not Petro?
It's not so much that he wasn't, like that I don't believe that he wasn't actually Pietro, but the theory is that I believe the reason why he looked like the other Pietro is because it's a crystalline construct.
Well, they kind of do that when they talk about the timelines, when, you know, Banner's kind of like, you got to give me the stone, and she's like, it doesn't matter. Once you remove it, you're creating something new. And being the scientist rather than the philosopher in that conversation, he's like, but if we put it back,
but if we put it back,
you know what I mean?
Like, no,
like, the ripple has already been dropped. You know what I mean?
You can't.
It doesn't matter that you dive in and create a bigger hole to get the pebble out and go, oh, see, undone it.
I learned it through the Wheel of Time series, I think, but it could have been any number of other fantasy series, but I think it's based off of some old samurai knowledge, you know, teaching wisdom, and it's that you can't untoss that pebble. You can't make the ripples go in. They don't go back in. At work we say oh man, you can't unfuck something. Damn, I'll have to remember. That's a good one. But you know, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, you can't, you know, you really can't. You're like, you can't unfire the bullet once you've done it. There's so many, you know, once something is done, it's done.
It's done.
And
even if you can, through time travel, undo it, it happened. But you are not living in that reality anymore. All you've done is change
how you tell it from that point on.
Yeah. Well, and
rewrite that chapter only, but it alters the story going forward.
Well, and that divergent timeline goes on too. This is the all worlds theory, I believe, or the myth as reality. Stephen King actually plays in this world a lot.
Tower and whatnot.
Yeah, everything, really, technically everything, because that's how the theory works.
That's the only way done, right?
I'm leaning closer to get. Yeah, it's not working.
Well, that's why they brought Darcy in, you know, because she's an astrophysicist and she's looking at the wormholes, and it's going to tie into, I think, Love and Thunder, because
absolutely.
You're fucking
like, what a great arc for her to happen off screen, but a great arc for her. She went from Jane's sidekick to astrophysicist.
Watch me save and explain this shit today. You know,
check this out. You guys are dumb.
It's funny, she was the big Marvel cameo for it, because you already have 2 Avengers in this show. You can't really like drop a mega cameo in
It
there. You
was
always have to have a
her.
surprise one.
Well, and
And
and and, and
surprise
it
is
was the
one of them.
trifecta though. Like you had
Yeah.
Jimmy Woo, and he was cool. That was nice, and it made sense.
Yeah.
FBI, Jimmy fucking Woo. Uh, and
And wait,
then
when he's
Art.
he's all talk, and then when it comes down to like take down people,
Oh, he's a bad
fucking
motherfucker.
takes
Like
them down.
he's
Oh,
he's
fight
he's one of
down.
my favorite non-powered Marvel characters that just dominates. Um,
Mhm.
but then you got Monica, which was cool because we saw her in Captain Marvel, but as a little girl,
Well,
and
and it's cool how they introduce her where the blip back. And I want to see something, even if it's for a minute in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I want to see it again because that touches almost for a millisecond for the sake of her story. But
Mhm,
what would it be like if suddenly 5 years later, everybody came back right where they
everybody's
left
back.
off?
Well, and I like that.
You know,
That's the.
that would be terrifying, honestly.
Let's save that for a moment. We'll get into that because that's worth talking about um, on this episode, especially with the Ralph theory, like what that opens up. If like I'm correct that that's the reason why he looked like Pietro from X-Men.
She's from
Uh,
a different timeline.
right, right.
Yeah.
That again, that
Real just over there.
crystalline construct, the whole refraction
Yeah.
theory that I came up with there. Like, and I can't be the only one. I haven't seen
Oh,
it anywhere or heard anybody say it, but like I cannot be the only one.
we're down here.
Yeah. Uh
Making
but
that
but
claim.
like that what that actually opens up is that we know that Doctor Strange is the multiverse of madness. We know that Doctor Strange is supposedly, we don't know, but how we've been hinted at heavily that he's kind of fulfilling Tony's role for Peter in the
Yes.
Spider-Man movie, which is
What is
that
it?
the
What's the new
mentor.
one's called?
Oh,
No
No
Way
Way
Home?
Home, No Way Home, and like they're having a harder and harder time hiding their Spider-Verse tie-in, like, and that's what they're doing.
I kind of think just for fun, you're not going to get all 3 Peters in Spider-Man 3. I think knowing the relationship behind the scenes, knowing the contracts at hand, I guarantee you Toby's going to show up in Doctor Strange out of nowhere
I
because it's a
think you're right. I think you're right.
I think that's how they'll do it.
I can't remember which one's coming first. I mean, we could look, but let's just pretend that it's Doctor Strange.
But he will be canon-wise, he will be, according to audiences and just the age-wise, he'll be the crying in the shower, divorced, lost MJ one.
Yeah,
If they do
Peter
it
B.
right,
Peter
battle,
B. Parker.
yeah,
um,
it's okay. I took it like a champ. Like anyone who's ever been like going through it in a relationship, like I know that feeling.
I know that feeling.
It's
I
good to
have
be like,
been there on that
take
same shower, man. Solidarity.
off. Even superheroes cry in the shower, guys.
Right, right.
Uh,
Uh,
but I do. I think Toby's gonna show up in what is it? Multiverse of Madness.
I actually think you're
Makes
right.
sense.
And then I think if he does show up in No Way Home, it will somehow tie into Multiverse of Madness, and that will be
Yeah.
the direct tie-in to that versus just having Doctor Strange in the movie. Like
Yeah.
there's the obvious, but the subtle tie-in will be a scene where whatever was going on in Multiverse of Madness, assuming that comes first, and I think it does.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. But assuming that comes first, whatever happens there with, or maybe it'll be Andrew Garfield in that one. But why
That would
would
be fun
Sam
too. I
Raimi
would
pass
love to
up to
see.
the
I
chance
would
to
love to
bring
see
back his old
Garfield
man?
Strange.
Yeah, it would make sense for Sam Raimi to do that.
Yeah, he'd be like, "No, I'm gonna pull my Peter."
Yeah, I'm gonna pull out my Peter, guys.
That's literally, like he's the oldest, he's the most experienced, he's got some warts on him, he's got this.
Yeah.
But he will. He'll also be the one when shit hits the fan. You watch. People are going to remember why those first Spider-Man movies rock. Because Toby
Right.
carried those movies in a way that up until
Three,
feminine
Cody
Venom
was so
showed up.
well directed to be shit. And that's because Raimi was just like, you know what? This is not the movie I wanted to make. And you could see that. You could tell when Raimi is
See that
phoning
in the
it in.
third one. It was, too many. By the time he had ascended with, how rare it is to have a perfect sequel and to have Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock just sell the way it did.
Dude, it's
Of
so
course
well.
somebody
Like
was
I
gonna
was
have
like,
9 men.
I at
That
first
with,
because all they
Dark
showed of
Knight
Alfred
Rises and
Molina was in the costume.
Yeah,
When they were promoting that movie, and I was like, I don't know, he looks a little too badass for Doc Ock, which seems like a weird complaint, but the reason I say that is because I hadn't seen him as just Otto Octavius yet.
Yeah.
Until I went to see the film. And
Well,
when you see him as Otto Octavius, and it's like, yes, that's the guy.
Bruce Wayne, the perfect cast, Anybody can nail Batman.
Right. Good job.
You got to be intimidating and perk your shoulders up and
just be brooding. Anyone can be brooding
for a lot of Batman, but Bruce Wayne is kind of the like you still have to root for the orphan with that.
You've got a couple of options on how you play Bruce Wayne depending on the situation, which it's gotta be fun. It's just gotta if you were an actor, like that would have to be so much fun.
In a lot of ways, he's DC's Tony Stark minus the sunshine,
Well, really, Tony Stark is Marvel's Batman, but if we're being technical.
That's true, yeah.
But with the difference being that Tony Stark's all like, no, I'm Iron Man. And Batman.
Look at the repercussions that
Peter Parker about telling people who he is.
Reality. That's what made that movie kind of unprecedented. When it came to, like Tony Stark would go, I am Iron Man, He's so true to the character.
Whereas Bruce Wayne would never say.
Every fucking superhero movie, it was the secret identity gig.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew that. And so we knew it was, he's really Iron Man. But when he looks you dead in the eye and says, hey, everybody, I'm Iron Man.
That was a game changer for movies. It
opened up danger that Bruce Wayne has never done because he's never, like in Dark Knight, he never did really take off the mask and put Alfred at risk. He has, but it's been indirectly and not for the bigger cause,
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like, he would cheat death somehow because he's the super smart detective.
And let's be honest, with Alfred and the few others being the only ones who are close to him, including Alfred, every one of those people is capable of holding their own against an army. And he's worried about them.
Yeah.
That's a big heart. Batman's got a big heart. I don't care who he
does. But at the same time, it's just kind of like
these are capable men and women, more capable than most men and women, and he's worried about them.
Well, then, like, look into Alfred's background, depending on how you do. Like, Alfred could hold his own,
It's what I'm saying, including Alfred. Like, they could hold off an army on their own. Like, Alfred, that old guy who was like into technology. Basically. Like my buddy JP, his dad, he's in his 80s and he knows computers better than I do. Like, I love that. I love that trope that some old people are that way. And it upsets me that more are just so resistant to the changes. Like,
well, it's funny because I start seeing that, like, I saw that with people freaking out online over US Agent. It's like nobody had, like, anybody, like, and the funny thing is the majority of people who are watching these shows have been brought in almost
because of the movies.
But they haven't really gone in, that's a sad fact too. It's because, where are all the comic stores now?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there used to, when I was growing up, there was Bosco's in Anchorage right down the road. I think it's still where it was, but like that's where I went in the 90s,
Dude,
I
same.
never bought a damn thing unless I really loved it, but I'd
I'm
spend
showing you
hours
where
in
you
there just
go.
looking at obscure, things. And they put it online now, right?
Dude, you go right fucking here when it loads. Uh, what did I just press? It's a new phone. Screen
Delete.
still sensitive. Should go right there, dude. Marvel Unlimited.
Unlimited. Nice.
That's
Okay.
the digital. It's like $10 a month. Like they should pay me because I tell everybody to get this app, even people who don't read comics but seem like they might be interested. Get this app.
Well,
It's amazing.
like everybody takes their phone with them, and like when something's like the biggest talked about adaptation, like I remember when Watchmen came out. And half the people were like, this is so edgy, and I'm like, well,
Well,
yes, but if you knew where it came from,
like
you'd
it was
realize that
really
it's
edgy
going to
when
let
it
a
was
lot of
new.
people down.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be surprising if they manage to pull 70% of it off,
And I think
because
they did a very good
the
job for
comic
what
by
they did.
itself, like, did it win like a couple literary like things that
Oh,
actual
many.
novels have won?
Yeah.
And it's one of the only graphic novels that have ever won where
Yeah. So that's
traditionally comic
actually
books don't,
like one of the
because
things
it's
I'm
that
trying to do with this
complex
show
story.
is you've hit on it perfectly, is that there's
Yeah.
still a lot of people in this world who think that comic books and comic book culture has nothing to add. There's no literary value. And it's the exact opposite. There is
Oh, yeah.
all of the literary value. You want a good murder mystery or just a
A
mystery.
history of violence. When people want to talk about a movie, like comics have no merit in like telling a story. I'm like, did you ever see A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen and what, Monica something? I can't remember her name, but it's a movie about a guy who's taking care of his family, and then some shit goes down in a diner, and he shoots up the place, but saves everybody in town. They're like, oh, Phil, thanks,
Thanks.
Then it makes the news, and the mob shows up because Phil wasn't who he says he was. Spoiler alert,
Right.
you know. Um, but that movie was based off a graphic novel, From Hell, with Johnny Depp about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
That's based off an Alan Moore book.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
People don't realize that if you don't think that comics as a medium can like influence things, you don't realize that those are walking storyboards.
Well, like you
As a
think,
filmmaker, that's your dream. Sim City is the reason it's such a great adaptation is because it took it frame for frame.
well, you look
Just
at the names of
certain movies
those
sucked.
early creators,
Yeah,
they weren't Macmillan and things like that. They were Siegel, Schuster, uh,
yeah.
Stan Leibowitz, you know.
Oh yeah.
These were poor, maybe middle class, disenfranchised young men who saw a better way, and
But they saw things differently too, and they found a cool way to tell it.
they found a very cool way to tell it and to impart these lessons of like we're all just people, even Batman's just a guy. Spider-Man's the best example because that
And
was
his biggest
the
fear
first
that
character who started out
might
from go
flunk his
as a
math,
human being, in
They
his
did, yeah.
problems. And these were not people from rich families for the most part. These were those people. They were writing their own stories into these characters, and that's that's what that's what literature is about.
Oh
That's
yeah.
that's why Homer wrote the Odyssey. That's why we have these things, is because people have stories to tell, and it's not necessarily uh 20,000 leagues being about going 20,000 leagues under the sea.
Yeah.
It's there's so much more there. Moby Dick is more more than just a fucking whale.
Ishmael, the book actually Ishmael, that if you break that down, a lot of it has to do with the Industrial Revolution at the time that it was written,
Yeah.
because it was about, well, we need oil lamps and we need these, and it was like, but at the cost of and
At
so
what
much,
cost? I think that's the biggest question in a
subtext
lot of these stories.
so huge.
At
I
what
don't think
cost?
people, and well, not just it, in comics in particular, that's a huge question that's asked a lot. At what cost? Like with X-Men, they did it with the Cure. At what cost?
At what cost?
There's the Cure. Your mandatory cures for mutants, and you blink today, and it's like, well,
Spider-Man's
mandatory
whole
vaccination.
shtick is at what cost? Because with great power must also come great responsibility. And when that is your whole driving force, at what cost? Everything. Everything you hold dear.
One of my favorite quotes is a Stephen King quote, and he says, fiction is finding truth in the lie.
Absolutely.
And subtext, and what are you really trying to say in a story? And when you have guys who are flying around in the sky in tights, well, that's cool and all, but what are you trying to say?
Yeah, who is he fighting and why? Because that's going to tell you a lot. That's like the first question. That's God, I've actually got a whole episode planned about this, but we can touch on it a little bit because we were going to jump into Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that. But I've been doing my research for this episode because I wanted to know as much about this particular aspect to the story as I possibly could. And what they did was they brought in Isaiah Bradley. In the last week that I've been reading the whole history of starting with him to his grandson, whom we saw, I have grown to think of him as my favorite Captain America because his story is
the original
Captain America. His story is so much more human even than Steve's.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away too many details because I imagine the show's going to get into it. This is planned for like maybe even after episode 6. But it's very related closely to the Tuskegee experiments in terms of how they frame it. But Mark Bernardin said it best on Fat Man Beyond, which is that you look at Steve Rogers, the government at that time, maybe even now, I'm not afraid to say it, would not give Steve Rogers, blonde hair, blue-eyed, stature of a man, if this works, Steve Rogers, the serum without testing it first. And at that time, the people who they would test it on were more than likely Black. And that's the very basic piece of this story.
And didn't know what they were getting when they got it.
And kind of, not really, exactly. It was like they suspected because like the ones who survived, I should say, they suspected.
Well, I wonder if they're doing do you remember the guys who had they all got shot up with the serum, but they all kind of got it temporarily, and they had to wear rings or some shit. I remember it vaguely from the Spider-Man show.
Oh, if it was in that cartoon, like probably not at all related to the comics except loosely.
Oh,
they took massive liberties, like Avi Arad was amazing to even bring all that to us, but they took some massive liberties with things. Because I can't recall anything, but I mean, I haven't read every comic. I wish I had.
Well, I think it was supposed to be a bunch of because there was a dude who could he almost flew. It was there was a flower. He was almost Falcon, but he
They
wasn't.
were, and then there was the Wizard.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about now?
Yeah. Okay, so that was like the, fuck, I'm probably not saying the right name, but like Squadron Supreme or something. It was
Yeah,
Marvel's
something
answer
like
to the
that.
Justice League. I don't know if they were actually
Yeah,
created in the 40s
but they
or
were
later,
built
but
in
yeah.
the image by Shield or some shit.
Golden
Uh,
Age heroes, though. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
after the model of Captain America, because they
Right.
wanted like a super team.
Hmm.
But because they never got the formula right, they all had glitches except for Steve.
Right.
That was what
Right.
I kind of the cartoon shit.
Yeah.
But
No, I do remember that now.
and so I'm wondering,
Mostly just because of the guy's name being the Wizard.
yeah,
And if you
well,
grew up in the 90s, whizzing.
Disney will take liberties too. We've seen it the way they'll spin a certain timeline, and it
But
usually works in benefit.
they're actually taking the time to consult with Marvel writers, people who have
They
written
really
these
are.
characters, and not just anyone. Like, if they're not approaching Donny Cates for anything related to Venom, fuck them.
Yeah.
If they're not approaching Donny Cates for anything related to Thor, fuck them. That guy, like, he's Spider-Man too. He is writing some of the best stuff uh right now. But,
Yeah.
but you know, they're talking to guys like this as consultants to get their story elements right. In some cases, they're hiring these people, you know.
Oh
Uh
yeah, yeah.
and that's amazing. Like, as a fan, like, you want the Marvel touch because
And
anybody can put on that
Disney
costume.
they're so on point on that needle when it comes to tapping into this is how we're gonna hit that nostalgia.
Mhm. I think my kids and my
How they introduce with how they're introducing characters, you know, everybody was always about going to be the first Captain America, first first Captain America. The first episode give the shield away.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well,
The second episode they introduced and
hold
there,
on, these guys
there is
have to edit this part out. That's enough, you two. I think somebody's here, but anyway. Yep, nope, still going.
still going.
All right. So you were saying.
I was basically saying that I think it's funny how because Disney uses their nostalgia factor so precisely, and they lay out reveals episode, and they're doing it with new, like you said, with Isaiah. You know, that's the big thing. People were like, he's gonna
So
be the
elegant.
and they did it in a way where they showed it without showing it, just through the interactions of his small scene. There is an entire story there. If
Oh
they
yeah,
want to tap into that, it's going to be awesome.
it
Because
is.
in that one introduction of him, you realize he was historically wronged.
Well,
And so much so that Bucky didn't even want to go there.
like,
Because
seeing
people
seeing
knew.
the display of his strength
Yeah.
was cool and all, but the most powerful part of that scene was for me was when he said they put me in jail
Yes.
30 years for being a
Yes.
hero.
Yeah.
That was the moment where, like, if you didn't get moved by that, you are not going to be very interested in his story at all.
Well,
And
you're
that's
going
even
to
such a small piece of
realize
it.
what this show is going to be about at heart. This is about, you can see how they're setting up. This is the other side of war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, you
Well,
in
and they're
terms of what
doing.
the soldier is going to deal with when they come home. It's something they kind of flirted with the Punisher show, but they didn't for the sake of the Punisher show.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, that was a study in PTSD.
Well, yeah. But they're breaking down it, the soul effect of it,
yeah,
with having to put Bucky in court ordered therapy and realizing that there isn't an Avengers pension. You don't get you don't get paid in tax dollars. You don't get paid by Tony
purely
Stark.
volunteer service.
Yeah,
motherfuckers.
With Rhodey, after he fell, he kind of, where would he be? His best friend wasn't Stark.
I feel like he's still serving, but as like in a functionality role.
Yeah,
glad hand you show up to functions, and but what I see is like we're getting, and this is a phrase I will use a lot, but the human stories here are that of two of the most disenfranchised classes of people in this country.
Yeah.
To my way of thinking, and the first one being, people of color.
Yeah.
The second one being veterans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like to give general groups, because obviously both of those two headings are followed by so many subgroups.
And the saddest part is they're interchangeable.
Absolutely. As far as the government looks at it, absolutely.
They're not only stigmatized walking down the street, but morally, idealistically, everything that they risk their lives for, it completely falls on deaf ears the second they're done with in service. But they still are expected to almost about face and pretend like the things that they saw that weren't normal if they're deployed, you gotta put that somewhere, and that's not how that works.
And there's no real, like, you don't get help with reintegration.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You don't, the VA sucks, dude. I know the VA sucks because that's what I have.
Worse than felons when it comes to rehab.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous. It bothers me deeply as a vet myself. But those are the stories they're telling. And they're flashing it up with, this guy's got wings and this guy's got a metal arm, and look at his purple mask.
That's has always been. It's we're gonna disguise you with all this fantastic stuff, but trick you, telling you a real human story.
Yeah, we're gonna give you Schindler's List, but with superheroes. Something that's a real, make you think about the world.
Verbatim.
Please and thank you. Give me that whole movie. The book series is incredible because he doesn't have powers in it for like most of it. It is just him as a Jewish boy growing up in the ghettos. And it is, have you ever read Mouse? I have it around here somewhere. Not readily available. I cannot remember the author, but it's Mause, and it's the Jews in this instance are all mice, and the Nazis are cats, and then so on and so forth. And the Jewish, the man who wrote it, like it's his grandfather's story.
Oh wow, he just
it's just, this is how he makes it palatable, for lack of a better term. It's an amazing book, graphic novel.
It's a book.
But yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. But that's what the Magneto story reminded me of was Mouse. In how it was told, it was very much they were from that perspective of in the ghetto, all the way through to scenes in Auschwitz and is it Wittenberg? No, that's from Isaiah Bradley's story. That's where he went to destroy some shit. Anyway, uh, that's why they put him in jail in the comics. But
okay.
yeah, he went AWOL. So, but yeah, one of the other
Look at his story for a minute.
Oh, dude, not even.
I'd go on vacation for a minute too.
Hold, please.
It's not like he would, like, knowing who he was, you knew that he was going to be found. He knew that. But it's like the pressure of what I loved about Captain America, his arc in terms of Steve Rogers on the film, was when you first meet him in First Avengers, you meet everything that is idealistic and beautiful and shiny about patriotism and being brave and being an American and all these things. And
well,
then
back when that was a pure thing, and
yeah,
using that sense very loosely.
But it wasn't, but it was how we packaged it. We never packaged it as anything other than you're a goddamn hero, you know.
Right.
And shine his shoes kind of shit. And then right around
buy this man a drink.
We, you know, well, not even then, like even we started doing that, you know, with like the Korean War and things like that. But by the time Vietnam hit and everything was being like videoed and politicized, you had that switch in narrative where it was like, well,
here's an on correlation too, is like this is the beginnings of wokeness in this country.
Right.
And who are the people dogging on the woke folk the most now? The woke folk from the 60s.
The people who just wanted to put flowers in their hair because they were going to San Francisco and we're going to go to Canada.
To me, that generation, they think they think they won those fights, and it's like, no, you won a bunch of battles and you did a good job, and then you stopped.
You didn't fight the mentality that created the conflict, and that's
wars are won.
What did Ultron say? I think you mistake peace for quiet.
Yeah. You know, those fights are still being fought, but that's that's that storytelling. That's
and when you look at the Winter Soldier in particular, one of my favorite quotes in all of the Marvel films is actually when, you know, it's in Civil War where he goes, you know, Steve's like, you know, it wasn't your fault, you know, Hydra programmed you. And he just looks at him and Bucky's just like, but I did it. And there's that level of accountability where when you strip everything away from somebody like Bucky, but at the core is that moral fiber, that's what makes him a hero, no matter what he does.
That's well, and that's what gives him the strength to
not sleep at night because of what he did. That's how,
like, right, like he's able to try because of that moral fiber, that strength, that core of his
tries harder than someone who, like, fucking Walker. You know, no. Have you ever caught a grenade and you know jumped? I've done it 3-4 times. You know, you've seen that footage, right, guys?
Yeah,
but you know, that's like the whole idea of that.
Well, and you got to think about the difference of like the wars they fought in. They didn't have no reinforced helmets in World War II.
Yeah,
they're lucky they got a helmet in some cases. You know, like. You know what
happened when you lost your helmet? You pray that the guy next to you that's dead didn't have a hole in that helmet.
Right. That was actually a pretty cool scene to see, like just the difference in vets.
Yeah.
From different wars.
Where we're out of ammo. What are we gonna do? We're gonna go get their.
Well, like for
There's a
them back
difference
then, the
between
Jeep was
that
the pinnacle of
and
technology.
calling in an airstrike because this guy's got your.
Right, right. Well, and yeah, back then, like the Jeep was the pinnacle of technology.
Yeah.
It absolutely. That's why they named it the Jeep. Do you know where it comes from?
No.
From Popeye.
Does it
From
really?
Popeye. It's a character in Popeye. This character was a magical being who could go anywhere and do anything, and that's what a Jeep for them could do. It could go anywhere and do anything, so they called it a
And
Jeep.
what was Popeye first and foremost? A comic.
A comic, exactly.
You have a vehicle that's synonymous with fighting for freedom from a comic.
From a comic.
There
Donald
you are,
Duck
haters.
in
Never say comics brought you anything. It brought you the ultimate off-road vehicle.
right, fucking 1984, the Navy officially retired Donald Duck with full honors. Donald fucking Duck
Oh yeah,
was
well,
actually officially recognized by the United States Navy as a service member.
isn't that where the Admiral Donald Duck comes from?
I believe so, but yeah, he retired in
He's in the
'84
sailor.
with full honors.
Yeah.
Like people for years always wonder, like, why is he always wearing the sailor outfit? It's because he's a sailor. He's in the Navy.
Yeah. But like, is he drawing that? Was like, no, like, go ahead, call the Navy. Donald Duck is in there.
Yeah, he's retired with honors. Like that's a big deal.
You know how surreal that would be as a creator?
Oh my God, right?
Like, what'd you do for a living? I created the world's greatest soldier. Why? Because he can't die. He's bulletproof. You'll never erase him. And all he does is win and
Yep.
curse you out.
Yep. And he'll kick your ass.
Yeah. That sounds like, a gunnery sergeant in a Nam movie,
Yeah.
Get the fuck in the chopper, come on.
Like that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is all like real shit.
Well, yeah.
But that was a cool scene, and but what's cool with John Walker is like all these people get mad. I feel so sorry for Wyatt Russell.
The dude who's playing him,
like stop being dicks because you might be ruining our chances to see Snake Plissken in the MCU.
Yeah, right?
Like, yeah. He's playing Ego the Living Planet, but I want Snake Plissken, not just his dad coming back as Ego. I want Snake Plissken in the MCU. Give me Escape from the Negative Zone.
I would love that shit.
Dude, that would be so cool.
Shit, don't they? Who owns the Escape franchise? Is that Fox? Make it happen, Disney.
Yeah, they had to have bought that.
Right?
Right.
Can you imagine Snake and Nick Fury just staring like, I'll get this side, get that side. Together, there's no blind side.
Right. Right.
They would fucking just annihilate.
They would annihilate.
I want the cameo of fucking what's his name? Hasselhoff.
Oh God.
Remember he was Nick Fury back in the day?
That's what you do. We need to get Snake Plissken and both Nick Furies on screen at the same time.
There'd be so much cigar smoke.
Right. So fun fact for the MCU in the comics versions. So as we all know, Nick Fury used to be an old white guy. And then they did the Ultimate Universe, where that universe's Nick Fury was very much based on Sam Jackson.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember seeing the first time they had was it alternate Sam Jackson? What was his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then
shut up. And I was like, that's fucking Shaft in an eye patch.
Dude, right? And then they went with which works way better, actually. But then they brought the alternate you over to the regular MCU. The regular MCU's Nick Fury had died, so the alternate Nick Fury took his place, and they retconned the story to make that Nick Fury original Nick Fury's son. So he's actually Nick Fury Jr. So they can do that story where Hasselhoff's Nick Fury comes in.
Man Rogers.
Yeah.
think about it. If you're introducing Isaiah and you know that somewhere, even if it's top secret classified information, there's an old Cap walking around.
Mm-hmm.
He isn't dead. He just is supposed to be here.
Isn't supposed to be here.
But that's just it. If Isaiah at his age could fucking do what he did.
Oh, Steve still got it. Steve still got it.
Well, and it's, I think was it your last episode where they talked about the concept of having a superhero who doesn't use their powers or chooses not to?
Oh, yeah, I believe so.
So you were talking about like a Superman, I think.
Yeah, and he chooses, yeah.
Way and, you know, but what if he didn't do anything with it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Fucking crazy. I'm wondering if that's how they're gonna play mutants. Because the amount of, because if you look at the amount of time jumping and rewriting and recoding, whatever they're gonna fucking call it now, they have to have been here, just like the Krolls, apparently.
Well, and like I said, like that's been the big question regarding the mutants is how long have they been here, or are they here yet? And again, the answer is that they've always been here. However,
to what extent?
To what extent, and how different were their lives to where their powers never got activated? The couple things we know is that it's usually during puberty, though it can be triggered early. Either way, it's usually some sort of traumatic
gap in the fucking snapping.
Dude, right. It's one of those things where when we get something that deals with what happened in that 5 years on Earth, and I feel like that's going to be scheduling when they can finally get those who were on Earth. So Banner, I want that story, obviously. How did he get to Professor Hulk? You know, what process was that? I want to see the details, you know.
Right. Well, not only that though, but it was 5 years, right? The timeline, I can't remember real quick. 5 years, right?
Yeah.
That's enough time for you to disappear and come back and have your little brother be a hot-headed 17-year-old who literally is flamethrower.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You know. To go back and have your sister be Rogue. So that's possible in that timeline because of the amount of shifting and energy.
I feel like, since we're talking about that specifically, I have a Fantastic Four theory. And one thing I always thought was weird, that Johnny Storm seemed significantly younger than Sue.
Yes.
And part of that was that he was just immature and she was very mature. But like even the way
they really like there was an age difference,
like a gap, like a
PhD, where he was a rookie pilot when you know what I mean?
Right. So like, I wonder when we get that, are they going to use the snap to explain
the age difference,
the age gap? Like they were maybe 3 years apart, actually.
But now she's like,
and now they're 8 years apart.
Like 20.
Yeah, they're 8 years apart now.
Yeah.
Right. So where he got snapped and she didn't. Which would be fun.
They didn't really even get into that. They kind of did it as a throwaway subplot when they did the second Spider-Man movie. You know, because it's supposed to take place after everybody comes back, and
and they've established now that that's after WandaVision, and I think it's gonna be after Falcap and Bucky's Power Hour as well.
Wasn't that supposed to be first anyways? I felt like Falcon and Winter Soldier were supposed to come out first.
It was, and then WandaVision. But they
moved. That's one of those shows where it just rewrites everything, unfortunately.
Right.
Which is both good and bad, because
one of the things I think we might see in regards to that, or rather how we can actually kind of, sorry, this is what I wanted to say. In Far From Home,
Right.
his teacher, played by JB Smoove, fucking hilarious actor. Everything I've seen him in is absolute comedy gold.
Oh yeah.
But
Movie 43.
in
Yeah, come out, bro.
throughout that movie, like one of his lines is, they ask him, well, what do you think it is? He goes, it's a man of science, witches. And then later on,
It does
he's
make you
reading an
stop and think.
article
They
about
totally,
witchcraft and stuff.
they've
And how,
totally introduced it.
yeah, like,
And
so,
even in the first Thor movie, he was describing, what you call science and we call magic. Where I'm from, it's one and the same.
right. Well,
Physics and dark magic is essentially, if you can bend matter and reality with or without some sort of machine, that's magical. I don't care what you
magic.
call it.
Well, and
Yeah.
there's
You
science,
created
there's
a
got to be
wormhole.
science
Guess
behind it. And
what?
in a lot of these
Crazy.
cases, the science is
That's it.
that there's something unique about your physiology or your
Yes.
genetic makeup in some way that allows you to access that part of your brain that would let you do that. Um,
Well, they did that with Deadpool as well. They basically tortured him into mutation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and with the introduction of various mutant genomes as well, uh, Wolverine, like the healing factor in particular, but they
Yeah.
had to torture him to get it to take. Uh,
Yes.
you know, as far as the treatment, their treatments were barbaric at best as far as
Also, it
the
was desired to put your
concoction.
body through such an extreme amount of pressure and force and
Well, and
like hyper.
I think
I don't
part
even.
of it too, and I haven't read too much, but it feels like if that's the case, if you were going to do that to make your own super soldier, when you think about the Weapon X program and the nature of their missions outside of their mandate of creating these super soldiers, their missions are always
Really
super black
unethical.
ops, super bloody, violent
Well, it's
missions.
like the show The Boys,
So if
and
you're
then
gonna if you're gonna create that soldier, you also would need to rapidly train them and break
well, you
them.
have
So
to
the
also
torture method would absolutely make
use the
sense.
mind
Two birds with
to
one stone.
you know,
Yeah.
to withstand what you're physically about to do to them first.
Mhm.
Because it seems like every time when it comes to Weapon X or it comes to Deadpool or it comes to Wanda and Pedro, they're tortured to such an extreme degree that a mind should fucking break from that. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Well, and that's what brings me back to how we know mutants get their powers is those
Yeah.
dramatic events usually during their puberty, but sometimes you got late bloomers and sometimes you got early bloomers. With Wanda and Pietro, we saw at least one of them got their powers when everyone says, when did she get her powers? But we know that she had them then. I can tell you the exact moment she got her powers. You remember when the whole screen exploded behind her? That's the moment. Her X gene activated right then.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's no other moment, in any of that. I mean, yeah, the knowing that that's a bomb that just landed in your living room, but after that explosion, knowing your parents are dead and gone forever, as a little 7, 8, 9-year-old girl, like the moment,
That's a PTSD light switch that
it's
triggers
absolute.
a change,
So,
whether it's
did you notice all the dust floating around and how some
I
of it was
guess I
gray?
didn't. I'm gonna have to go rewatch that episode again.
Some of it's
I remember
gray,
watching that episode and thinking, well, now we finally get to see the story,
right? Well, some of it's
And
gray, some of it's like a glowing red that's clearly a coal, but everything that is in the foreground of the focus is glowing bright scarlet red. That's her power working.
protecting them without her even being conscious of it.
It's that subconscious fear response, which is exactly how mutant powers manifest. They start as a reaction, a fear reaction, or a fight response in some cases.
Fight or flight, and it literally became almost like a hybrid of both in that moment.
Exactly.
Which is kind of how she fights. She fights defensively, not necessarily offensively.
Absolutely. And part of that, of course, is the Hydra training, because they all fight from the shadows, but the other part of that is like the manifestation of her power is very much, I must hide.
Yeah.
I can do a lot, but I have to hide. She runs.
When we meet her, when we meet them both, even though Petra's super fast, he's always running not close on the outskirts, messed with their peripheral.
Yeah, like the psychology of Quicksilver is actually amazing when you think about it. He's such a dick, but he's also very loving, and his love for his sister almost comes off as creepy unless you know
what they've
that
been
history. And yeah, when you know that, it's like, no, this is exactly how twins would be.
It's funny too, because if you know twins who are different genders, or even not twins in general, they have a very, some of them have it, some of them don't, but a lot of them, when they're young, they're almost linked.
Absolutely.
They'll answer each other's questions, all
That
sorts of
twin
things.
bond, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I think it's funny because Quicksilver is basically a dirty blonde who is like, bleach blonde / dark ass hair. Whereas Scarlet Witch is clearly a redhead. It's hard to sell them as twins other than the fact that they're referenced as twins.
Right.
Where it brought in Evan Peters, he visually actually fits more
Absolutely.
to what the Olsen girls structure is.
When I just read, because part of the Isaiah Bradley saga is reading through at least the first run of Young Avengers, which they're trying to set up right now. In WandaVision, we got, we can go back. We saw their Hawkeye already. Except they're changing it to Kate Bishop officially.
Yeah.
Because people like her better.
Haley, what's her name from True Grit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting Kate Bishop, but they've set up a young Hawkeye, as it were.
Just bring me Miles. Bring me Miles.
Oh, we're getting Miles. I know we are. We can't not be
getting
Miles.
Well, they kind of introduced him through Donald Glover's character in Homecoming.
I got a nephew.
Yeah. He really looks up to you, man.
Right.
Like, I have ice cream in there,
But so in WandaVision we got Billy and Tommy, Wiccan and Speaking. And then we got Patriot as well in not the last episode when they went to see Isaiah.
His son.
His grandson there.
His grandson, yeah.
His grandson is Patriot. So we have 3 of the Young Avengers. We know and this is
if you watch Endgame again at the funeral, there's the kid from Iron Man 3.
And I'm wondering if he's gonna be somebody.
I thought he did.
I mean, like somebody, because he's not
somebody.
Like somebody, and I'm almost wondering if they're gonna make him Teddy, which would be Hulkling, who is half Skrull, half Kree, and he is the son of the Skrull Empress and the original Captain Marvel, which they'll probably turn it to be the Skrull Emperor, since the original Captain Marvel was a lady here.
I wonder if they're gonna introduce that in the next Thor movie.
Right.
Because I feel like Thor, the next one is gonna be where they start branching into things the audience didn't necessarily. I don't think people warmed up to Captain Marvel because she's.
So Captain Marvel's cocky, but she's cocky
Well,
in the way that pilots are cocky. If she would have played her character more like Tom Cruise in Top Gun,
yeah,
it would have gone better. But she played her like a mean girl, but like just a bit, just a mean person.
Kind of attitude.
Yeah, no, she just played her like a mean person, and that's not Carol. Carol is not a mean person. She's just a very cocky person.
That movie was
Hold on. What was it?
I said the way that they had written Captain Marvel, the film, was very much to kind of fit her into a backstory. And it kind of fucked up a few different stories in terms of doing it. Because now the advances for anything that was pre-Avengers movie 1 should have been well ahead of its time. Because by 92, 91, Nick Fury, with both eyes, saw aliens.
Right.
You know, he saw the scrolls, you know.
Well, and like Shield Tech was, but nobody else was, you know what I mean?
But the way he worded it to everybody else before that movie came out, Nick Fury always says things in a way where he paints a I know more, but I'm gonna give you this. You know what I mean?
This is all you're getting, but I know.
Yeah, he breadcrumbs you like a motherfucker when you want the whole cake.
Like, I know because I know, but I need you to find out for sure.
Yeah, that type of shit. And he didn't do that in the first Avengers movie when they're like, you really want to know why? It's because of him, because of you. Right. And really, we know that wasn't the case. That was like almost a red herring, a blatant lie, bait, switch. He followed the timeline. But at that point, when shit was starting to hit the fan, you had to have called. You should have called her in the first Avengers movie.
Right. All right.
But they did because they had to fit her in for what they're building next.
Right. So, okay, real quick.
That was, we're not going to focus on her. We're going to focus on the threat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because the scrolls are a huge part.
Yeah. So I think that was Teddy, if they're going to make him anybody. With that said, we're going to have to cut this one here. Thank you for joining me this evening for another episode of Cody on Comics. I'll come on back anytime and get you a little cock. Thank you very much.
Is it off?